So as you guys may or may not know, one of the core elements to my first brand, and my second brand, being able to scale to its max profit potential, and really with my first brand, being able to not only scale to the max, but scale extremely fast in one of the most competitive spaces or niches was Etsy ads. So we got to 7 figures in our first calendar year between our Etsy and our Shopify sales channel. But in that first year, our Etsy sales channel made up of 90% of our sales. So a lot of people know me for this video, and I talk about Etsy ads all of the time because Etsy ads, if done properly, should yield you more profit and help build a moat, a layer of competitiveness around your shop. So I thought, who should I come here to talk about Etsy ads with me? What better person than the guy that actually taught me Etsy ads? So in today's interview, I have Dave from Dave Add to Cart here speaking with us today, who is gonna go over all of the common objections, questions that are centered around mastering your Etsy ads. So I'm really excited because he has not only been on my channel once, but now this is his second time giving us some very valuable information. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode. All right, and welcome back, Dave, to the TDSM podcast today.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me back.
So for anyone that is meeting Dave for the first time, you're the first person to show up twice on my podcast. So I'm super excited. If you all haven't seen that first episode, make sure you watch it. But if you don't want to watch it, we'll still just give you a little backstory here. Dave was actually my personal mentor. As you may have seen in the intro, he is a mega big Etsy seller, has so much experience on the platform, been selling for like almost over a decade, right?
Yeah, selling for 7, coaching for 5.
Yeah, so has just met so many different types of Etsy sellers, so many different types of use cases, been inside so many different types of businesses because he has a really hands-on approach when it comes to coaching. And yeah, just has a lot of value to give. So today we're really going to go deep in this whole Etsy ads topic, Etsy marketing topic, because we know that that's probably what most people struggle with. One of the most things that Etsy sellers struggle with. So yeah, Dave, give it a little bit of your backstory before we go too far into that. For anyone watching that have not seen that first episode, tell us from your point of view, how you got into, Etsy and how, everything is manifested now into coaching and where you are today.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks. So I started selling back in 2016, but previous to that, my girlfriend, now wife, we were selling at art shows, music festivals, farmers markets, anything that we could. And we really got sick of that hustle, crafting all week to sell only on the weekends, to first have to make your money back and then worry about profit. That got really old. And I decided that I'm going to force Etsy to work. We have to get online, et cetera, et cetera. Struggled for about a year or so, but after that started to really take off after I figured it all out pretty much on my own, had to go through a lot of learning curves, etc. But then after that, about 2 years into that, growing my first store beyond 6 figures, I started coaching and helping a lot of other people. And I found that, money doesn't buy happiness, but it definitely takes care of a lot of the problems that can prevent it. So that's why I really get a lot of joy out of coaching. And that's kind of me in a nutshell without going into depth.
Oh no, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, guys, if you want a really more full in-depth story of that, make sure I'll cue that first podcast episode. Like I said, Dave is a huge contribution to my success on Etsy, so I can't vouch for him enough, and, his channel and all his coaching and everything that basically he provides to this community. So yeah. All right, cool. So let's go into some more Etsy stuff. So what would you say is, out of all the Etsy ads questions you get, or the big things that are key points that Etsy sellers are missing, the FAQs of Etsy ads, what are some of the big things that people point out to you that they're struggling with, or false beliefs, or the mistakes they're making with their ads? Maybe if you can, off the top of your head, list out a few of those things and help sellers overcome that whole
side of their business?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. Etsy ads is like integral, and it's so important and vital to your entire store's success. You know, it has a massive impact even on your organic listings. So like when you can get that dialed in, your store can really take off. And a lot of people make a lot of different mistakes. And a lot of those mistakes I have found throughout my coaching experience, a lot of those mistakes are from decisions that are emotionally based and not based on, you know, mathematics and reason. A lot of people get salty or get worried or just get sick of not seeing what the numbers that they want to see. So they'll turn things off, they'll restart things, they'll lower the budget, they'll increase the budget, stuff like that. But some of the biggest things is like, what should I have my budget set at? When should I kill a listings ad? And how do I know if I'm profitable? Those are some of the biggest ones. So I guess we could start with the first one I have here on my list is what should I have my budget set at? This is an in-depth topic. Obviously, you want to have it set at the highest you're comfortable with, and preferably the highest that they'll give you. And then from there, once it starts spending more, they're going to increase your maximum budget, obviously. But the big difference between Etsy ads nowadays and Etsy ads when I started, or even like 3, 4, 5 years ago when they switched from promoted listings to Etsy ads, is that you have to really force it and work it and finesse it, honestly, to get it to spend your entire daily budget. When it was promoted listings, whatever you set your daily budget at, it would spend that. And that would be actually a blessing, because if it was spending your max every day, it was just up to you to manage your ads properly and turn off your unprofitable ads. And essentially, then you'd have a money printing machine. That was awesome. That was the quote unquote good old days when you can control your cost per click, your max cost per click, etc. That was great. But with Etsy ads, the only thing we have control over is your daily budget and which ads you're advertising, right? So we have to really focus in on the titles and tags that you choose, because that's where you're aiming, and then your budget kind of shoots it towards those people. And if those people aren't interested, that's going to reflect in a loss of money, because they're going to click, they're going to window shop, and they're not going to like it. And that's assuming, you know, that your photos and your product, etc., is good and your conversion rate is good, because the higher conversion rate is, the higher, you know, the more profitable you're going to be when you do get in front of those people, when the Etsy ads algorithm does decide to show you. But long story short, what should I have my budget set at? As much as you're comfortable with, preferably the max. Then once you see it spending close to that, it's going to increase, and you should increase from there. I know that was kind of a long-winded answer, but that's what you should have your budget set at.
To the people that are saying like, oh, I'm just spending a bunch of money, but it's not actually yielding any return, what do you say to that? What is the reason for that? The seller problem, or is it an Etsy ads problem?
Totally, it's a seller problem. If you're spending money and you're not profiting, then that means you have a ton of listings that are wasting money. So there's two. You almost alluded to another question that a lot of people get, and I think we should probably go into that now and then talk about that second one. The first one was like, how do I get it to actually spend my max budget? Because sometimes it doesn't. You'll set it at max and it barely struggles. You'll have it set at 50 or 100 and it's spending like a few dollars a day. There are instances where I have seen when you lower your budget, let's say you have it set at max, it's only spending not even a fraction of that. I have seen when you lower that, your daily budget, closer to what it's actually spending on average each day. So you go to your 30-day stats, you see what it's spent, you divide that by 30, that's your average. You lower your budget closer to that, then it actually starts to spend a little bit more, then you can kind of inch your way up. That's for specific situations. And honestly, every niche and every store is different, because each niche is going to have different competition and each store is going to have different quality, meaning click-through rate and conversion rate. Then to answer the actual part of that question, it was that, why am I not profitable? It's spending too much. And that's a common thing. I've been inside of student stores that have listings that have spent hundreds of dollars over the past 30 days and only made a few. You know, and the biggest takeaway from this question is that Etsy ads is not a set and forget platform. You have to actually manage your ads. You have to turn them off when they're not profitable. Therefore, you know, you can actually profit. What I have found is that Etsy sellers in general don't know what they're actually willing to spend in ads on a specific product in order to profit comfortably. So you want to become comfortable. You want to become familiar with what is called, you know, your comfortable cost per conversion, your target CPA, whatever you want to call it. How much money you're willing to spend to get one sale. Because after that amount of money, there's your material costs and your fees, etc. And if there's not profit after that, you're definitely losing money. And that's actually why I've loved to see you launch Profit Tree. Like, by the way, I forgot to tell you in the intro, like, congratulations on that, because that software allows you to see your whole store ROAS. And I really, really appreciate it. It's actually really special to me because, you being a past student of mine, launching a software, Profit Tree, that's kind of wild to me. Definitely no other students have gone on to launch software. So I definitely congratulate you in that, and actually really love the software.
Cool. Yeah. We're still very early, but yeah, I mean, one of the goals is that, we'll give you a lot more clarity with your Etsy ads, because I think that's one of the big, things that people fear is, they already don't know how much money they're making. So like this idea that now I'm going to give more money to something else that is marketing budget or ads, it's like a really scary thing for them because they already don't have a concept of what they're making on a sale by sale or product by product basis or
Totally.
as a collective. So yeah, I'm excited and thank you for that. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like when it comes to tracking your Etsy numbers or even like your numbers in general, like a lot of people, I come across two types of Etsy sellers when it comes to tracking numbers. And that's people that are like spreadsheet freaks and people that love to track every penny. And then it's only, there's no in between. There's only like all the way on the other spectrum where people are like, am I making money or not? My bank account is not where I want it to be. And so there's got to be an in between. And that's why I really liked poking through the dashboard on Profit Tree. But to answer that original question, you have to turn off your ads when they're not profitable. It's just that simple. I know that's a crazy concept, and there's different timelines that you actually want to turn them off in. A lot of people ask, the next question after we talk about that, if I'm not profiting, what should I do? It's to turn off your unprofitable listings. Kind of a duh moment, but for a lot of people it isn't because they do believe it's set and forget. But the next thing that a lot of people ask me is when? When should I actually turn it off? And the answer there is it's not really a when question. It's a money question because we're spending money. We're not looking at a time frame. We're looking at how much has been spent. So if it is spent over your comfortable cost per conversion, you need to turn it off. And then going on from there on an advanced level, 30 days is like the hard stop for me because I have seen Etsy ads don't come back from the dead. They're not going to magically start profiting after 30 days you losing money. Now, there are some rare situations where let's say you have a bestseller and you go to the all-time stats, you're halfway through the year, like right now in May, like you're halfway through the year and you have an ad that's one of your bestsellers and historically it's still profiting really well, then that's a situation where you would keep it going, but you got to be really careful. And the rule of thumb, honestly, for most people is 30 days. If it's not profitable in 30 days, you got to turn it off.
Okay. That's really interesting. And then for people, so here's the big question that I get all the time. I sell digital downloads. The sale price is $3. What do I do in that scenario? What I tell people is that with digital downloads, it just means that your threshold of comfortability, as you call it, is stricter, right? So,
yeah.
And the nature of those small, stores is that you probably have hundreds of listings. So it's going to it is a thing that a lot of those listings are not going to be profitable with ads are. So maybe out of every 100, you only find 3 to 10 winners that are like mega profitable with ads on. And it's that compared to top line revenue, obviously. So yeah, I guess that's my approach to it. But what are you telling people in that scenario? Low ticket, do I spend digital downloads or just low ticket items in general,
Yeah. Good question. So first I'll answer the digital downloads question, then I'll go on to low ticket. Well, I'll answer it in reverse. For low ticket that isn't digital download, you still have to know what your comfortable cost per conversion is and material costs, et cetera, so you know if you're profiting or not and turn it off after that. But for digital downloads, you could literally decide, hey, if it's a $3 digital download, I can spend $2.90, and if I get a sale after $2.90, I'm profiting 10 cents and then some fees. You can do that if you want, but yeah, you have to be extremely strict. And because you're going to have so many listings, you are going to inevitably have some profitable listings. And that's another big topic, actually, is that a lot of people will listen to me or whoever on YouTube and find out, yeah, you got to turn off your non-profitable listings. Okay. But after that, you have to continue feeding that fire. You have a daily budget that I'm referring to as a fire. You got to throw, kindling in there so that way you have more chances for future profitable listings. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with a small chunk of listings that worked out, but then you're just going to be stagnant. And that happens to a lot of people. They become stagnant. And then after you get stagnant, your store eventually dies. And that's one of my biggest percentages of students for hands-on mentorship, at least when I go into a store, is that the store was doing well for X amount of years, and then it just took a cliff dive, and they don't know what they're doing because they don't know why, and they don't know what they're doing to some degree because they were comfortable for X amount of time because they were making money.
Yeah. I hear the scenario like, oh, I only turn my ads on during the holidays, during the high time versus the low time, or they're like going up and down. In my opinion, your ad should always continue, like your ad budget, I'm talking about your ad budget should always go up. You should never go down. It should be go up, optimize, go up, optimize to get closer to that $1,000 a day, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What happens when you do that to your ads? When you put your ads up and then get scared and turn it down?
That has a huge effect. Budget changes and turning your ad campaigns on and off have a massive effect on the store's performance in general, even organically, and your ads performance. And if you're always turning it on or off or lowering the budget, it just creates so much turbulence that you can't gain momentum. So like you mentioned, the main reason of people acting that way is because of seasonality or seasonal listings. And that's not the remedy. Like, unless you're like a Christmas card only store, you need to have evergreen listings, and you need to continuously cultivate your ad campaign so that way you're getting more and more evergreen listings in your ad campaign that is profitable, so you can always be increasing. So yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. And then with along that line as well, I mean, another thing, people will throw out there is I put my ad budget up, but then it made all of my sales stop. What do you say to those people?
Yeah, that's actually pretty common. When you make a change on, sometimes, almost always, when you change your ad budget, it can rock the boat momentarily. Whether it's a good change or a bad change, you sometimes do see views decrease for whether it be a week, 2 weeks, or sometimes shorter, sometimes a little bit longer. But after that, you should see it bounce back if it was a good change. So yeah, that does happen, and that's common.
Yeah, and to that point, just to add on there, it's a lot of the times people are saying that to me, it's, they're looking at a 2 or 3 day data sample after the change was made, and they immediately have remorse of that decision and think that it messed everything up, but it didn't mess everything up. You need to think of your ads in like 30-day time periods, right? Like, you cannot make a higher level decision in a 3 or 4 or even a 7-day time period with ads. You need to be analyzing things on a month over month basis. The only exception to that, I would say, if you agree with this, is if for whatever reason you just have a listing out the gates, just spending a bunch of money. Because obviously, if something's spending really fast, there's a reason, right? So obviously, if something spent $300 in like 2 weeks for whatever reason, after you've spent $200 on a listing, that's a significant amount of spend. That's, you have collected quite a lot of views and clicks by $200 that you can make a decision even if it's not 30 days. I don't know if you would agree, but the only exception to the time variable is, did it spend really, really fast? And then you could say, okay, yeah, this actually just wasted a bunch of money. So I would say, we kind of touched on this before, but can you point out a couple of scenarios where people are claiming that Etsy ads don't work, but it's actually the reason it's not working is because of these 7 other factors in their store? Like, what are those 7 other factors, basically?
Yeah, good question. So like, do you mean like the 7 other factors being things people want to point at and blame? Like, for example, like competition, economy, et cetera, or like things that they can control?
They're saying Etsy ads is wasting my budget. It's not working. It's wasting my budget. And then when you go investigate their shop, what is it truly? What do you think it is true?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so yeah, I have had a lot of students that come to me with Etsy ads. Hey, my Etsy ads aren't doing what I want them to do. And most commonly is that they're not giving it enough fuel to the fire. They're not adding listings to it. It's like a set and forget mentality almost. They never add things to it and continuously test. Like, I remember specifically on a phone call with you in like 2019, you grasped the concept like right away. You were like, okay, I just need to test a lot. And I was like, yep, that's what you need to do. And then shortly after, here we are. So it's essentially you got to test a lot, and that means new listings, whether that's duplicates or new products, whatever it is. But a lot of the times, sometimes people are trying Etsy ads on listings that have been in their store for like 5 years, and they're just like dead horses, and they're trying to beat a dead horse. It's gotten renewed like 25 times, and it did well in 2015, and just not happening anymore. So that's what I typically see, is that people don't give it enough tests. You need to test, because when you're testing all the time, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when something is going to catch on.
Add to that as well, like something that I see as well is like, they earn the click, like the main image was good, but then you click on the listing and the branding or the following images are incohesive. So like with your first brand, like you had beautiful, very strong branding and cohesive follow-up imagery, which is great. But for people that, they do a good main image or whatever, but then like you can actually scare people away so you could earn that click, but then you could scare people away by having incohesive branding on the back end. Like whatever you did in that first shot was great, but then the preceding shots, and then you just lost that conversion, right? That's like a big thing as well. If it is spending and it's not profitable, like we said, it's normally the result of a seller issue, not an Etsy ad issue. So time, the incohesive branding, maybe they confuse them in the main image. So like you're showing something that you can't actually purchase when you click on it.
Yeah, we're talking like you and I so far, we're referring to just like brass tacks Etsy ad strategy, the settings on Etsy ads. But a huge part of what people don't consider is that, the product has to be good, period. And the algorithm responds to human behavior and measures human behavior. Human behavior meaning conversion rate. How many times do people buy it versus look at it? Click-through rate. How good are your photos? How many times do people click on it versus it showing up on computer screens? I feel like if people were allowed to see their impressions for their organic listings, their heads would explode, because there's thousands of impressions that occur. If your listing shows up on a computer screen, even if their eyeballs looked at it or not, that's still an impression. Because, a lot of people ask, I'm getting a lot of favorites, but I haven't gotten sales yet. If we were able to see impressions, I think our heads would explode.
Okay, let's just back up a little bit. Let's like take somebody on a journey that has a brand new Etsy account, and they basically, they're about to launch their first 50 items, right? And they don't know anything about Etsy ads. Give us a little like step-by-step walkthrough of how you would guide them into testing out that first batch of listings. They're going to be a lower ticket item. Let's say it's between $10 to $15, and they're going to go in hard with 50 listings. And yeah, they're 4 weeks into this journey and they haven't turned their ads on yet. What would you suggest?
Yeah, that's a good question. So definitely have all of your listings in Etsy ads. You don't know which ones are going to do well, which ones are going to do bad. So you definitely want to start with all of them right off the bat. You definitely want to at least go inside of your Etsy ads dashboard every 3 days, minimum once a week. Because again, we don't want to have the set it and forget it mentality. Even if you're not doing anything yet and you don't even know what you're doing, at least just go look at it and just start thinking and start asking yourself questions. That's better than not doing anything and just hoping Etsy to bring you sales. Because, Etsy is its own unique platform. It's not Amazon, it's not eBay. A lot of people maybe had experience with eBay or Amazon. Mostly people that sold random stuff on eBay try out Etsy, and the way that you want to structure your listings, the way that you want to have listing strategy, etc., completely different. It's its own algorithm. It's its own beast, in other words. And you have to learn Etsy's algorithm specifically, what it thinks, what it likes, how it lives and breathes. And once you can actually grasp that, then you'll become an algorithm whisperer.
That's awesome. That was really, really good value. Let me recap kind of what you just said. So that's another thing. I just launched my store. Should I turn on my ads for all of my listings or just some? So yes, Dave is saying we should. Why do we want to do that? Because we want to give every listing a fair shot at the algorithm. And budget-wise, we answered that question. Something is better than nothing, whatever you're comfortable with. We just don't want this thing happening where it's going up and down. We want to gradually go up, if anything. If it's $5 a day, $5 a day. And I'm pretty sure even back when we first met, that's what you told me. You do something you're comfortable with. You personally had your set to, you said $15 a day. So I set mine to $15 a day. But if that's too aggressive for you, then you start with whatever's comfortable for you. Just know there's pros and cons to both. The lower the budget, the longer it's going to take to collect data, right? The more higher the budget, the more you're going to spend, but the faster you can rip off the Band-Aid. Now, the safe play, I guess, you could say, is only turn on listings for ones that organically take off first, which is something else that I say, but I'm curious on your take on why you should or should not. Is that okay? Or we should just always do every listing? Because this scenario is for a new shop, but say you're somebody like POD and you already have 1,000 listings, should they just only turn on the listings that are already doing well?
Depends on how you want to be with your budget. There's no stone tablet. I think I mentioned this in the last interview. There's no stone tablet in the CEO's office in a vault where all like the things the only things that work, they're chiseled into this tablet, and it's up to us Etsy YouTubers to like figure out what's on it. That's not the case. Like if you want to wait until it takes off organically and then put ads on it, that's totally fine, because if it does do that, that's awesome, because it took off organically. You don't have to pay for any sales. I'm impatient. I don't do that. I put everything on right when I create a listing. Ads go on it right away because I want to add more fuel to my daily budget. Let's say you're trying to be more conservative with your budget, or let's say that your Etsy ads campaign is just like killing it. Like let's say it's at your max, it's spending super close to your max. You put $1 in, you get 10 back, and you understand a lot, and you don't really want to rock the boat there, but you still want to list more listings. That'd be a situation where it's cool to just wait until it takes off organically to add to your ad campaign. But it depends on each situation, because each situation is different, meaning the seller's finances, the seller's knowledge, the seller's confidence, and then the store's situation, meaning the niche, the product quality, and how long it's been around, etc. So again, there's no stone tablet, and lots of things work for lots of different situations. Me personally, I add things right away.
You actually just said something that made me just think differently about something. So that was super valuable. But also, I just want to make this other point too, is that like even in that scenario, right, where you're already somebody that has a bunch of listings and you're like, should I turn them all on or just turn on a few? Or if you're the brand new shop and you're like, should I do it for everyone, or just, the conservative approach of the ones that take off first? Even in those two scenarios, you have two options, right? You can turn them all on, or you can just turn on some. Either you're new or a seasoned seller that just never had ads on before. But there's pros and cons to both options. Like if you don't do exactly what Dave says and you don't turn it on for your 1,000 POD listings, that it's going to fail. It's just the pro is that, yeah, maybe you're conservative, but you're not spending as much up front. But the con is like, well, you might have missed out on listings that would have been crazy sellers, because Etsy listings perform differently when there's budget behind it. So I'm like you, and I want to see how they all perform with the ad money behind it. And so the alternative of only turning on, listings that take up organically first is that, well, that's fine, but you're not collecting true data of how your whole data sample of products are going to perform with your ads on. Yeah. And when you turn your ads on, the algorithm is already going to naturally choose the ones that it likes the most. And, I had listings that historically never would sell, and then I would put ad money behind it, and then they would sell, you know what I mean, and be profitable. So it's just there's pros and cons to both. It's just understanding the pros and cons, I would say, is the real solution to that. What is the right answer? Because there's not really a right answer. It's just like whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah, totally. There's right answers that work most of the time, but then there's extenuating circumstances in every Etsy store. So I mean, I've seen YouTubers talk about how they do no ads whatsoever. And if you're willing to wait for an organic listing to take off and then just keep doing that and that and that, that's awesome. Go for it. More power to you. I'm impatient, and I want to cause forceful growth and grow my income quickly. So that's how I do it. And yeah,
this is awesome. I think we got a lot of value out of this conversation. I think we see a lot of things eye to eye when it comes to ads, but you also bring in ideas and theory that make me also think about it in a different way. So I think that's super valuable to all the listeners. And yeah, so tell us more about where our audience can follow up with you. We'll obviously be linking below all of the things down below, so you guys can go to his page and check out everything that he has to offer. But yeah, I guess what else is in store for you? What are other things you're doing right now?
Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, you can grab I have a free Etsy Ads cheat sheet. We'll put that in the description below. You can book a free 10-minute consultation call with me, and that's regarding hands-on coaching, where I go into your store, I analyze everything, I do listings for you. It's like I teach you how to fish and I feed you for a day. You get courses with that. And then you can just do an hour coaching with me or buy my courses. It's all going to be in the description below, and I'd love to hear from your listeners. And I really appreciate you having me on because, from our last interview, I had a lot of people contact me, and it was a pleasure speaking to your listeners. And a lot of the listeners knew both of us already. So it was just really cool and pleasant.
Yeah, I feel like the quality of our viewers are probably very similar. Definitely, handmade or, even doing print on demand stuff, but really just wanting to do things, I think, on a higher level. So I really appreciate, the people that comment on our videos and listen and tune in, because they're really nice people when you meet them in person. And I don't feel like everyone has that same quality of viewage or audience. So it's cool.
Yeah, really appreciate you having me on.
Yes, for sure. For sure. All right, guys. Thank you so much for staying until the end. And Dave, I'm sure we'll have you on here many more times to come, because you're a wealth of knowledge and so have so much value to give. So just thank you for sticking around for this last hour or so. All right, guys.
Bye.